So welcome back, guys, to We Talk Boxing. And today I'm going to be talking about Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. Now, in terms of what went down, we all know what went down. AJ got his ass handed to him, which was a while back now. But Daniel Dubois, and I should say probably, and Anthony Joshua haven't both come out and said who they will be fighting next. We've been hearing a few little things in regards to Daniel Dubois, certain opponents. I think at the moment, Josie Parker looks like maybe the forerunner in terms of potentially getting that fight. The fight that he's obviously been waiting for a while, and he's obviously worked his way up into that deserved position, like a few other fighters have of late. But there's nothing has been confirmed. And when you're hearing from Queensbury side that um, obviously AJ's definitely not the next opponent for Daniel Dubois, and that they're looking for alternative opponents for February the 22nd. It makes you think to like, why ain't they announced it? Why ain't they picked a name? Why haven't they come out with Daniel Dubois' next opponent? It's quite interesting, and that's probably because they're waiting on the actual confirmation, maybe from Anthony Joshua, to 100% say that he's not fighting Daniel Dubois. Now, recent interviews that Eddie Hearn has done, I mean, he's not dismissing the fact that AJ's definitely not fighting Dubois. He's saying that like AJ's next two fights are Daniel Dubois and potentially Tyson Fury. So what does that do for the February card? Now, the event is pretty much set in stone. No fights have really been confirmed yet, but that date has pretty much been like set in stone from the get go, and that's pretty much from way back when AJ and Dubois was pretty much announced. So what's the hold up? And I think the hold up really is AJ and his so-called injuries. Now he hasn't actually come out and said that he's got injuries or stuff's going on in the background or what. He hasn't really done any interviews. Now you guys can let me know if Anthony Joshua's obviously done any interviews that I haven't actually watched. But from my knowledge, I ain't seen an interview with AJ. Whereas Daniel Dubois and his team, and obviously the Queensbury, etc., they've done multiple interviews. Eddie Hearn's done multiple interviews, but AJ is nowhere to be seen, which is quite surprising, really, because you would have thought someone like that, who lost in the way that he did, will probably be hungry to want to get back in there with Daniel Dubois. Now, yes, he's possibly got injuries. I'm not dismissing that, but I think it's more psychological in terms of AJ's mindset at this moment in time. I think it's his mindset that's probably took the biggest beating, and maybe his heart. So maybe he has to get that right before he goes back in the ring with Daniel Dubois. But it's a case that if he knows that he's not ready, just let it go. Just let it go and let the fight with whatever Daniel Dubois and whoever he chooses to pick commence, because that's realistically what we want to see. We don't want titles being held up, and we don't want things being announced late because it doesn't give fighters enough time. We want to see the best of each fighter, and I'm guessing no doubt that Daniel's in training, and I'm guessing no doubt maybe that AJ's probably in training. I don't know, but nothing's been announced, and it's just a little bit shocking, really. Is AJ waiting for that fight to happen between Tyson and Usyk before he confirms that he's maybe not fighting Daniel Dubois, or he's gonna try and fight Tyson, or whatever it may be? Who knows, really? But yeah, well, I think it's just pretty much a matter of time, really, which isn't good. But on other news, I should say, there's quite a few little headlines on boxing scene at this moment in time. Harlan Eubank isn't pretty much setting his sights on the Adam Azim fight. He's just going to hopefully try and progress with his career, and obviously if that fight happens, then he will take that fight. And then you've got other news like Keyshawn Davis. Obviously on the weekend he come through, hell of a fight, I should say, between his opponent. Where can't remember the guy's name, but I watched the highlights just briefly, and he he got dropped. No, he weren't him actually. That was Abdullah Mason, wasn't he? Who got dropped a couple of times and come back and won. But yeah, that Davis guy obviously put on a show, and now he's pretty much calling out Tank Davis, which I think is a massive, massive step up in class. I don't know what you guys think about that fight, but obviously Keyshawn Davis is young, he's hungry. You know what I mean? He believes that he could potentially take out the 30-year-old, obviously Gervonta Davis, and he possibly can. Who knows? I think it would be a good fight. I just feel as if it's probably a fight that is too soon in the making. Me personally, I feel as if he needs to probably have a few more higher level fights against better opponents. That's just my thoughts. Maybe even try and win maybe a proper legitimate world title as well, before you probably start calling out people like Gervonta Davis, because Gervonta Davis for me has been in there with some of the biggest names, and he's obviously put them on their arses, he's obviously messed them up, he's destroyed them, whereas Keyshawn Davis is an up and comer, hasn't really got a belt to his name, but is a prospect. He is a prospect, and we've got to admit that really. So, but again, in that division, it's stacked with a lot of talent. You got Shakur Stevenson. You got obviously Frank Martin in there as well. Got Loma, depending on what Loma's doing from the British part. You've got Cordina, and yeah, a few others as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on in the news. Obviously this weekend we've got a couple of fights actually. We've got Jake Paul obviously taking on Mike Tyson, which I think is a fight that realistically I don't want to see, but I will watch, if you know what I'm trying to say to you guys. Like, don't want to see an old Mike Tyson get in there with someone who's pretty near enough just under or over half his age, who's hungry, who wants to try and beat him. I'm not saying he can beat Tyson, I'm not saying he can hurt Tyson, but it's pretty much a young man versus a proper old man, and it doesn't matter how much accomplishments Mike Tyson's done in the game, he's still taking a risk for me, because again, anything can happen. The fight got postponed back earlier this year because of health issues, and now he's in there fighting against Jake Paul. Jake Paul for me should be favourite to win. I think Jake Paul will win. I don't think Jake Paul's going to mix it with Mike Tyson, so I don't feel that Mike Tyson's got anything to worry about. But it is boxing, and anything can happen on the night. Other news, obviously on the undercard as well, you've got Katie Taylor versus Serrano. Now, if that fight is 50% of what it was in the first fight, then you know what I mean, we all should be entertained, because the first fight, when I watched it, was one of the best fights I've ever seen, especially for women's boxing, the best ever women's boxing fight I've ever seen. So if it's 50% of what the first fight is, you know what I mean, we hopefully should be intrigued and not be on our seat, because again, two women are going to go at it and they're going to leave everything in the ring. Also from the Saudi part, you've got what's his name, Chris Billam-Smith. He's fighting what's his name? He's fighting Ramirez. Forgot his name. But yeah, he's fighting Ramirez for his belt, and obviously Ramirez's belt. So this is a unification fight. So yeah, hopefully it should be a good fight. I'm predicting a Chris Billam-Smith win. He needs to win if he wants to keep progressing. So hopefully he can, because I do feel personally that there's bigger fights out there for Chris Billam-Smith. But I do feel as if it could be, and I think it will be, a tough night at the office for Chris Billam-Smith. But they're my thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts in regards to my video, in regards to AJ and Keyshawn Davis and Harlem Eubank, and obviously Chris Billam-Smith and Mike Tyson and Amanda Serrano, what I've mentioned as well. And as always, guys, let me know your thoughts. Please subscribe. Bless.